Good afternoon. This is the January 27th, 2026 meeting of the Infrastructure Committee of Marlborough Borough Council. My name is Mike Salenson. I am the new chair of this committee. I'm here along with Mike Baldini, who's the vice chair, and Joe Stratton, who's the third member. Also present are members of Public Works, our engineering firm, our outside engineering firm, and our borough manager and assistant borough manager, Ms. Dawson's on. First order of business is the approval of minutes for October 28, 2025. Since neither Mr. Stratton nor I were present for that, Mike, you have to make the motion.
I will move to approve the minutes.
So can you second that?
Second.
I think we will rely, Michael, on your memory. Tell us that consistent with the minutes, since neither of us were here. So all in favor of approving the minutes? Okay, we have, since this is our first meeting of the year, we wanted to sort of lay out some of the bigger things that we'll be facing for the coming year. Beginning with recommendation of action items for Borough Council, starting with our 2026 paving program. So I will turn that either to Ms. Dobbs or Mr. L. Jeff?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we still use our road assessments from Benoni in 2020. As I've often joked that the roads don't self-improve as years go on, so we still feel that list is accurate. This year, we're recommending, that we pave Conway Avenue, the 1, 2, 3, and 400 blocks of Conway. Picking up Stewart along the way as, we pave the other road that abuts Stewart in 2021, and then picking up the dead end of Price as well. Within there, all ADA ramps, will be improved as needed. Be replacing some of the manhole lids and frames, and I know in the budget, we recommended setting aside $225,000 from our highway aid number. There is an estimate in there that our engineering firm did. That came in at $272,000, but if you remember, from last year, our recommendation was $300,000. Our engineering's estimate was $321,000, and our final price was $247,000. So don't let that number scare you on their estimate. I still think it'll be lower.
Is there a formal motion here to?
Or so that was what's in the action item for council. So I guess we would move to recommend. Is there going to be an official action?
So we just want to affirm that these are in fact the roadways that we will pave this year, pursuant to the original estimation from the Benoni review back in 2020 when we had done the assessment, and then based on Mr. Eldon's assessment of what we can and should be doing this year. So that would include then the 0.57 miles, and how many do we have? 10 ramps and 15 manhole lids and frames. So really the action item is to just approve the scope of work to council, and then our consultant and Public Works will proceed with getting official bid documents prepared for the paving program, which will come before you when we have those.
If I have two questions, would that be after the motion or before? About the project?
We should raise it now.
Real quick, the two questions. One is the all of Conway is being done, North Conway, except the 500 block where it dead ends. Is that being done at a different point, or it's just not needed? Okay.
It has to be done. There's no doubt about that. It's just not as well traveled as the other portions of Conway. So we'll most likely pick up that section when we start to pave those there. It's a safe line action.
Perfect, thank you. And the I'm new at this, as you all know. The number of ramps, ADA ramps, is fewer than the number of corners. Is that because some of the corners don't need a ramp?
Some of the corners have updated ramps that have been done with the sale of the house. And some are just in general good shape that we don't need to touch them.
Thank you. No further questions, thanks.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to recommend to full council the 2026 paving program as outlined in the pack.
I make that motion to approve the 2026 paving recommendations to go to council as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, second item is the Montco 2040 grant, Elm Grove Park pedestrian bridge. And I'll hold off on making a motion to recommend it. Pending.
Yeah, so I'll just
That stops.
give a brief update and then I'm going to turn it over to Tony to walk us through the design plans. So this is a project that was identified in our capital improvement plan and was identified in our master parks plan. And this has to do with the removal and replacement of the new pedestrian footbridge that connects the terminus of Elmwood Avenue to Wynwood Road. So as part of this, we are applying for two different grants. The first one is the Montco 2040 grant. The second one that we will be applying to is the DCNR C2P2 grants, Community Connection Partnership Program. I believe the Montco 2040 grant, though, is the first one that's due up. Both of these grants do require match dollars, but we're hoping to actually, if we're awarded both grants, we can use the grant awards as our match for this. But they do both need to be shovel-ready projects, meaning that the grant awards are for the actual construction itself, not the preliminary engineering or design for the project. So we do all of that work upfront. And so we tasked our engineers at Pannoni to draft then our actual design plans. So Tony has been working on that. So Tony, if you would please walk us through the actual then design plans, the schematics of which are included in your packet.
Yeah, so if you look at sheet number 3, which shows our proposed site layout, I can kind of walk you through it that way. Originally, when we kind of first started the project, we had three elements that we wanted to include in the design. The first being, the replacement of the bridge and putting a new bridge or pedestrian bridge in place there. The second being replacing the retaining wall. With new retaining wall kind of in place where the current one is. And the third was to add a stormwater basin, or essentially a bump out at the dead end of Elmwood there. After a meeting that we had with DEP to discuss the permitting that would be required for this project, they told us, yeah, you guys can move forward with a general permit, which is typically the easier, less comprehensive permit. They said that replacing the retaining wall and replacing your pedestrian bridge, you can fall under that general permit. However, they said, in order to stay in that general permit, your bridge has to be above your 100-year flood elevation, and you cannot implement any stormwater basin in your project design, because that will push you into the harder, more comprehensive permit. So we thought, okay, at that point we thought, okay, we'll remove the basin so that we can stay within that easier permit threshold, and then. After we did that, after we continued with our design, one of the things that we noticed here is you'll see that right now we have our bridge going parallel to the right of way, and it comes straight across the stream there. Originally, we had thought to have the bridge kind of set at an angle to kind of have it enter into Elm Grove Park a little bit better and kind of make a more kind of a better entrance into the park. We had to scratch that because we noticed that the bridge was clipping the private property that's right there. So we need to make sure that we stay out of that property. So we reoriented the bridge, and we kind of ran into another issue where in order to keep the bridge high to stay out of the 100-year flood elevation, The bridge would have to be about 2.5 to 3 feet higher than the existing grade, where the bridge would tie into the sidewalk there. So it would require, some more extensive regrading and kind of wouldn't give an optimal design. So at that point, we thought, okay, it's probably worth moving forward with the more extensive, more comprehensive permit, so that we can lower the bridge and have it better match the existing grades, and so we're not doing a lot of additional work that shouldn't be necessary that shouldn't be necessary. And also, if we move forward with the more comprehensive permit, we can reinstate the stormwater bump outs as well. So that more comprehensive permit, the joint permit is what they call it, is it's about 3 more months of review time, and it's maybe about 30 to 40% more work from on our end to draft the appropriate documents and submit it like the DEP. So that's how we'd like to move forward. This site plan right now does not show the stormwater basin. We just had another conversation with DEP just to make sure that they were okay with us, reinstating the stormwater basin and kind of lowering the bridge, under the assumption that we would be, submitting the more comprehensive permit. And so, they told us that was fine, that we can do that as long as we're not creating any adverse effects to the stream, which we don't intend to do.
So if you're changing the grade, a lower grade, is that gonna run into problems with the 100-year flood?
We don't expect it to, because the existing bridge right now is also at that lower grade. So we ideally we'd like to match like where the existing bridge is now from an elevation standpoint. Or we could even have it a little bit higher than the existing bridge. So if anything, we don't expect it to have an adverse effect, and if at best case, we have improved the conditions of the stream of the surrounding flooded area. Any other questions?
I've been excited for this project for a while.
Yeah, me too. Great. Now, the fact that we have to redo the engineering, that's not gonna mess up our timing for the grants.
Well, I don't think we have to redo the engineering, but I
No.
think what it sounds like for next steps is that we'll need revised drawings to submit for the grant application.
Right.
So it's okay that we don't have our DEP joint permit in hand as of yet. So we just indicate that on the grant that we've already had preliminary conversations with DEP, that we are proceeding with the application for this permit. And then we'll just need revised drawings to show then the stormwater facility and the bridge kind of all in one. I know though we had also talked about possibly pursuing county grant funding for the low volume road grant for that stormwater facility. Is that still a possibility?
I think we can still look into that, Richard. Yeah.
Okay. So what we can try to do then is, so maybe Tony and Jeff will sit down and talk about application timelines for that and grant funding for that, and strategize if we want to exclude that from the grant ask, show it as part of the total project, but then exclude it from the actual calculations for the award that we're seeking, and just keep the award to the bridge itself, if that makes sense. Or we include it all in the ask. And then again, if we have, matching dollars, we could seek additional kind of funding through that route. So we'll coordinate with the staff in terms of kind of how we want to proceed with the breakdown of the actual grant award that we're seeking. But I think the next steps that we would need then would be approval from the committee to proceed with the work as amended, as Tony presented. So if that seems satisfactory to you, then we'll coordinate at the staff level on the next steps to revise the design drawings and then draft the scope of work for the grant in the most advantageous way possible. Considering now that we might have a third grant tied to this overall project, which is the County Conservation District low volume road grant. which is the same grant that we received for the installation of the stormwater bump outs on Grayling Avenue last year.
So let's figure out how to phrase this. I would like to make a motion to recommend to Borough Council that we proceed with the necessary next steps in consultation with staff and engineering to move forward on the project, the Elm Grove Pedestrian Bridge Project. Just leaving that generic.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, item C, the capital project town clock restoration. I suspect that Mr. Eldon's going to tell.
Yeah, so the town clock restoration is one of the projects that was approved in the capital plan for this year. As we all know, 2 of the 4 faces have been out of commission for some time now. Given that, you know, the town clock is kind of a stable piece downtown, you know, I think we owe it to folks to get that fixed this year. The company who installed it is actually the company that will be repairing it and upgrading its internals. The thing with them is they require a 50% down payment to get all their materials ordered. So that 50% deposit would be $7,625. So, you know, that will have to go to council for an action item to expel the capital funds. They will get the check, they will order the materials. We should see them out here late spring. And then when they are complete, myself and my crew will repaint the clock. Questions, comments, concerns?
Sounds great.
Okay, so I will take a motion to recommend to council that we approve the purchase order for the material repair of the clock.
That's so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, and last but not least, our capital project, our security.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I included a memo in your packet, but this is related to another capital improvement plan that we identified in our CIP from last year. And this is for security cameras in and around Borough Hall here at 100 Conway. So we had a few incidents last year and it really kind of amplified the need for this. This has been on our CIP. Initially on the CIP, we included the full cost to replace the system, but after speaking with the vendors and with Chief String, it does look like we are able to just add cameras to our existing hardware and software package that we can get another couple of years out of what we currently have. And then once that technology becomes obsolete, which it will, in about, I believe, 5 years, then we can look at doing a more kind of full-scale overhaul and replacement at that time. But for now, we don't need to spend the extra money, but we do need the extra cameras. So it's a much lower cost, about $8,264 just to add those additional cameras, which would give us a few extra cameras outside, have better visuals on the basketball courts and the parking lot. And then the proposal also includes some interior cameras, which we don't currently have, that would be focused on the main kind of hallway areas, just for, you know, safety purposes.
Would those be first floor and second floor?
Yes, I believe that it would be a camera in the hallway. So as you come in, so the restrooms and then the police to the right and borough offices to the left. So the camera would be focused on that portion of the hallway. So kind of the main entrance. And then I believe in the hallway up here, Jeff, do you recall?
I know Chief and I had talked about that, and I think we agreed on putting at least one up here.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if it made it into this proposal, but I would be a betting man and say yes, because John is awfully thorough.
Yeah, I believe it does, and I can confirm with him, but I believe it's going to be one in the hallway downstairs and one in the hallway upstairs.
Excellent.
So nothing too invasive, but the hallway views. So at least if people are coming in and out of the building, we have some security there.
And then those cameras just get continuously fed? Like the images get continuously fed somewhere into storage?
Yeah, so it's, this is where Chief String would be the better person to explain kind of the process. Jeff, chime in if you know, but this, so it's a, I don't want to misspeak.
Okay, so,
It's, I believe it's a live stream and then we have some storage capacity. I don't know exactly what that would entail, so I can get more information for you from Chief String.
I mean, I only saw it signed up for when we talked about the body cam. For the police officers, it gets held for a certain period,
Mhm.
not a long period, but that way, if you have an incident, you freeze it because the storage is expensive. So, it's like,
Yeah,
be able to have it for enough of a window so that if you find out you have an incident, that you preserve that rather than, because we don't have somebody to watch it 24/7 in real time.
right. Yeah, well, let me talk to him about that
Yeah.
and I can get clarity.
When it comes to full council.
Sure.
Okay. I will take a motion to recommend to full council, the security cameras as outlined in the accompanying materials.
That's so moved.
Second.
All okay. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Stormwater bump out plan for discussion. Jeff, is that you? Or is it Tony?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we looked at we looked at some more potential stormwater bump out locations for a 2026 project. Some of the considerations that we used to find these locations were what we always look at, which is crediting potential. How much sediment reduction credit can we get for each of these bump outs based off of DEP's MS4 permit mandate. And then for this year in particular, we wanted to look for a couple locations on the south side of the borough. We understand that there was interest in questioning on why we haven't put it in on the south side yet. And also we didn't want to put any in areas where we already have bump outs close by. We had some feedback from last year's project where people were kind of wondering why we're putting one here when it was so close to an already existing one. So we want to try to find some areas that were a little more spread out. So we had a couple good locations on the south side that probably won't pan out. One of them being the bump out at the dead end of Elmwood, or bump out / stormwater Houston. Since we're going to try to put that in with the Elmwood Ave project, that the construction for that bump out would happen in 2027. Another good location that we found on the south side was at, if I remember correctly, it was at South Narberth and Woodside, which is about a block away from the bridge replacement project happening right now. So we thought, maybe it would probably be a good idea to table that one until the bridge project is done. So we're not having, a lot of construction happening in that one, in that immediate area. So we found, one additional bump out on the south side that we thought would be a good candidate, which is at the intersection of Maple and Woodside. So we think that one has good crediting potential and would be, a good candidate for this year. And then we looked at 3 or 4 locations on the north side, up near Sabine Ave and let's see, where is this, Dudley. So there, that area, that immediate area has we've identified 3 or 4 locations there that all seem to have good crediting potential and good check the other boxes that I mentioned previously. So that's what we're thinking that we're going to move forward with, and we can come up with a finalized plan, based off of you guys' feedback and an additional site investigation, just to make sure that that there's not any obvious utilities or any anything that would hinder us doing anything in those areas.
One question I have, which is relates to your last substantive paragraph. So if the, and maybe I should just back up. So I don't know how familiar you are with all of this, but basically these bump outs are required by the DEP. So, people, I know sometimes we get expressions of unhappiness to taking away parking spaces. People feel like they're doing stuff in front of their house, but it is legally required that we do this, and we've actually had multiple extensions on this project. But the one question, Tony, is if the requirements change, as you suggest they might in next year, do we have a sense of whether these proposed bump outs would help us meet those requirements, or are we gonna do some of these and then find out, we didn't actually, now we have these new requirements and the bump outs that we're doing don't help us meet those requirements?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what DEP is telling us now is they're saying, yes, like we are moving towards a different approach to this whole MS4 sediment reduction system that we have here. But keep doing what you're doing and you will need to continue satisfying the original permit. That's what they're telling us now. That could always change, but as far as right now goes, they still want us to continue working towards the original goal with the original permit, and then come, probably anytime in the next year or two, they'll come out with a new, with their new system, their new mandate, and they think that they're gonna move it towards a more volume management type system. So instead of reducing sediment, they're gonna look at ways that we're controlling volume of water. So we're considering, maybe trying to get ahead of that by instilling a volume management feature to the bump outs, which would be some type of underground storage to the bump outs. The one thing that we're not 100% sure about is whether or not they'll allow us to retroactively count for anything new anything that we're doing now before the new mandate starts. So we included in the memo as kind of a heads up, and here's what we're thinking about. We may, we're looking into it, but we're not, we may or may not, want to do this for this year. It's still kind of in the works, and trying to get a better idea on how DEP is going to approach this new permit. So
Have they given any indication as to, so like we've attributed a certain amount of sediment production to a certain corresponds to treats a certain amount of right? So have they given an indication as to like, okay, we've met this amount, we're not gonna have to, like, we're not gonna be completely switched to a new system, or we're gonna have to retread the amount we've already kind of like been credited towards, or have they given any indication how they're gonna approach that?
not fully, nothing either. Yeah.
So I just want to chime in. I had back in December, went to it was a training that was put on jointly by the conservation districts of the 5-county area, and basically the guidance that's been given essentially is DEP is still going to be requiring the pollution reduction plan as outlined. The amount of sediment reduction still remains in effect. The rate reduction, which seems to be the direction they're going, is effectively going to be the next step. So you still have to reduce the same amount of sediment, and then you're going to move towards rate. So really, implementation of anything that's in your PRP now is still required. You're still getting the full credit. I will kind of point out to what you're saying, like how much have we done? These bump outs are a measured step towards meeting your PRP. There is still a lot. I mean, you, like most other municipalities, are still on the low end. You're probably somewhere in the 10 to 15% of the sediment reduction. But this incremental showing some progress forward is really, it's been the best direction. And that's really what everyone's kind of operating on. We are continuing to comply. And so installing the bump outs is going to be consistent with your plan now and in the future as well.
Yeah, and we receive increments credited for whatever facilities are put in via development applications as well.
Correct. In your the various systems that have been put in, effectively starting with Price Crossing since then, has all counted towards the sediment reduction requirements.
And what year was Spice Adder? That was like 2018, 2019.
Price Crossing finished about that time, correct?
So I guess I'm thinking about if we're talking about, flow reduction as well. Just trying to think of these intersections. I don't know whether, we could. Whether there's sort of a way to figure out priorities of. When it comes to full council, if we're not gonna do all five. I might think about where's the highest flow at these intersections, if we know, so that we're sort of meeting that objective as well.
Well, but it sounds like the opposite potentially, right? Like, well, first of all, like I think the first thing is focusing on the sediment, because that's what we know right now we're gonna get credit for. But we're also not sure, it sounds like, whether we're actually gonna get credit retroactively for volume reduction. So I kind of think you either don't consider it at all and just focus on sediment, which I think was kind of like the sentiment. But to the extent that you're going to consider volume, then you might actually
Flip it. It's kind of weird to have a, disincentive to actually solve two problems at once, because we don't know how big a requirement we are going to have to have this.
Yeah, and I assume, you guys tell me if you think this is right or wrong, I would assume that like a volume metric is probably gonna be relatively difficult for us, just because everything, we don't have like, we're not Lower Merion, we can't like put a gigantic basin on some big piece of land we own somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's all proportionate to to the size of the municipalities, things like that. So
Yeah.
You're going to require to reduce volume at a much lower scale than someone like Lower Merion would. But yeah, I mean the types of BMPs that you could, or the types of projects that you could implement would be, you still run into the same problem as we did before, where the borough's built out. There's not a whole lot of room for the types of projects that other municipalities can do. So we're kind of working with what we have, and what we're able to do with that.
Obviously, it's gonna come in front of full council as well. It's not an action item, it's just a discussion item, so. Well, I think we'll want to think about if we're gonna do all five of these, or if not, figure out how to prioritize.
I think at one point, and this was, I think, like ungodly expensive, which is why I didn't proceed with it. So at some point, I recall there being like a proposal to like put a basin under Station Circle, like when that occurred. But I feel like that, like when the price tag came back,
I remember it being high, it was shocking, because
yeah,
I don't remember the exact cost.
yeah. And from like a sediment reduction, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it, again, considering it's probably even more ungodly expensive than it was right then. But I don't know, something to think about in terms of volume.
Well, if we end up redoing Station Circle, hopefully it will result in a pretty big reduction in permeable surface. Mr. Eldon gets his way, we're gonna have a nice park with lots of water absorbing growth, right?
I can't be pushing to get things. done. Yeah.
Kind of getting involved, yeah. So, that certainly would help. As a former commuter who had to sometimes slog through the tunnel, when the pump was working, sometimes the thing would be tough, so. Okay. Second discussion item is the capital improvement plan.
So just wanted to take a look ahead at the other projects that we didn't yet discuss that we have on the agenda for this year. So we discussed the bump outs. The police vehicle replacement, this is something that we authorized last year. This is Chief's new vehicle. So it's on a lease. So we just made the down payment last year. So we just owe the balance this year. So that one's already been authorized for expenditure. The other big one that we need to consider is the replacement of the elevator. So we need to work with our houseman and our maintenance operator for the elevator just to get some quotes on what the specific work is and get a price tag to you all to take a look at. So we haven't moved forward on that as of yet. But that is coming later this year. The portable radios, this again is something that is a county requirement. These are for our police. So we did amortize them out over the cost of the next 3 years. So 6 a year, estimating about $16,000 per year. Chief is looking at what the county is offering, if there's any sort of grant or other funding mechanism that the county can provide to offset that cost. So nothing that is coming before you as of yet. So we're looking at ways to reduce that cost that we have to bear. So we'll provide you an update. Otherwise, we have the library entryway vestibule. So we need to get some architectural plans in place for that before we proceed with the work. So that is also as of yet unstarted, but on the docket for the year. We discussed the camera security system. Oh, sorry, was there a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So we just discussed the camera security system. So as I mentioned just a little while ago, we're going to proceed with the additional cameras on our existing system. So that will take that number down from the $45,000 anticipated for replacement down to the 8,000 or so additional cameras just for the added security.
We should probably shift that expense to a future year at some point.
We will when we do our capital plan later this year. So it doesn't make sense to modify anything now. But certainly once we get to mid-year, when we're looking at updating the CIP for 2027, we'll consider kind of where we are with all of these expenditures. So at the very least, we're hoping if we haven't already spent the money, we're hoping that we actually have estimates. Or if we need bids, bid package put together for the total cost of these things so that we have a better idea of where we didn't spend the money that can roll over, where we might be spending more than we originally budgeted for, and if there's any projects that end up being pushed another year. So this is a planning document. This isn't a funding document. So it is subject to change, but this obviously is helpful for us to, give us direction as to what we need to focus on for the year. So it's already proving very, very helpful. The replacement, the Ram 4500 replacement, the dump truck, this is something that council authorized the cost for the upfitting in December. This is because we had to authorize the upfitting to get on the schedule, which was a 57-week, something like that, queue. So we did authorize the down payment for that. We're not actually going to be purchasing the vehicle though until next year. So the 67.5 that we have budgeted for this year is actually technically for the fit out. So it seems like it's a little bit backwards where we pay for we pay the down payment for the fit out before we pay for the actual vehicle. But that's just to get us, like I said, on the docket, and then we'll be able to actually purchase the vehicle. So that's where you see the split between this year and next year. Town clock repair, excuse me. So again, Jeff just presented on this. And then we presented as well on the Elmwood Ave pedestrian bridge. This one I do just want to note. So the capital plan does not account for engineering or preliminary design costs. These are just installation costs. So again, if we get the funding that we're seeking through these grants, this number, this $400,000 anticipated over the next 2 years for actual construction, we're not planning on doing construction until next year. So we wouldn't necessarily be incurring too many costs this year. I was told that we might actually be able to include the cost of demolition on our grant application and include that cost as part of the grant ask, which would even further help to decrease the amount that we could potentially be spending. So if that's the case, where we're able to get this, the actual demolition and construction costs fully funded by our grant applications, all of this money just gets rolled into future projects. Obviously, if we don't get the full funding and we do have to expend some of this money, then it's just whatever we don't end up spending. But if we, for whatever reason, don't get any funding, we have this reserved in our budget to be able to still proceed with the project. So that's kind of the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is we get all the funding that we're seeking, and then we can just use that money for other projects, since obviously we have a nice list of them. So the main things that I wanted to kind of call your attention to, so the 300 block of Grayling sewer main repair, I know that this is something also that we have in our CIP. Council did authorize the increase in our sewer rate last year, in part to offset some of the costs of the anticipated construction. So that is something that Pannoni is working on. Tony, do you have a estimate as to what our design timeline for that project is, or Jeff?
Design timeline, pretty quick turnaround, probably 30 to 60 days, closer to the 30-day. It's pretty, we did this project a few years ago. It was pretty simple and straightforward. So we follow that same playbook, and we can turn around something pretty quickly.
Okay. And Jeff, can you remind the committee when we're planning on administering that project or executing on that project?
In a perfect world, when school's out and folks are on vacation, if I could just mention, I did get a quote back from the company to clean and do a cured in place pipe. And the vendor felt confident in the videos that they saw that they could in fact clean it and just shoot in a cured in place pipe liner for a price of $69,413.
Okay.
So that was just a ballpark price from him. He said the price would most likely come down when he puts it through a CoStar's contract.
So we're pretty close to what we budgeted for. Cool.
We'd be well under,
That would
yeah.
be
Yeah,
a big savings to the point where, within these larger projects, you're always paying, the contractor to set up. And, I don't get it, but.
we have to put that out to public bid.
That one will be,
Since
yeah.
it's a CoStar's contractor, I don't believe.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
yes, going through CoStar's, yeah, there's
Okay.
different rules for that.
Okay,
So yes, so that will not need to go out, but contained within our capital fund in our other budget item for sewers, we could potentially line some additional pipes while we're already paying the 10 grand fee for them to come out here.
Right.
So
okay,
we'll be exploring that just to kind of use them as much as we can while they're here.
okay,
Makes sense to me.
And yeah, so we'll continue kind of tightening up that estimate and ensuring that we hit all documentation process that we need for contractor work. But if the total amount of the cost of the project ends up being significantly less than what we budgeted for, then yeah, I know Jeff has a list of some other areas that we can consider doing repair work and maintenance work, since we have the contractor mobilized. So we may be able to build off of that without any additional expenditure of funds beyond what we have budgeted for.
right,
And then the last two things I wanted to mention, and we don't have any solid plans right now for this. This is just something that we had discussed last year is wanting to proceed with, but the baseball bleachers, this was what we had discussed. So this came out of the master parks plan. This is kind of a phased improvements to the park area. So we talked about removing the bleachers that are on Wynwood Avenue closer to the Windsor. So there's the two sets of bleachers, one closer to Haverford, one closer to Windsor. We'd be talking about the bleachers closer to Windsor being removed because those are being damaged by the trees and they're getting to a point where they're a little bit unsafe. We did speak with the Baseball Association, so they're aware of the plans, but the idea would be to remove that set of bleachers, not included in the capital plan, but included in kind of our overall street tree and tree maintenance budget. We do want to take out a significant number of trees along that roadway. That is because they are getting old and dropping limbs, and it is dangerous. They're white pines. Jeff can tell you all about them. But that is the plan, is to actually take out some of these trees that are posing some problems there near the end of their life. And so it's going to be a dramatic change. So we do want to come up with a game plan and message this out to folks, since I think it's going to be a little bit shocking for them to come down Wynwood and realize that this canopy cover that's been there for the past 50 years is coming down. And we're not doing it lightly, and we're not doing it for aesthetics, we're doing it for safety.
I assume we'd be replacing them with other trees, hopefully fast growing and provide some shade.
So Shriner, or free contractor that I use, when we walked the site, they said they would give us 2 oaks, because we have to take the oaks down at the war memorial as well. That's the one that dropped a limb while one of the VFW members or the Legion members was setting up flags for Memorial Day, and a limb dropped 5-6 feet away from him. So they are substantial trees, but they will replant more appropriate trees in more appropriate spots, so they can just kind of live in peace.
Will we need to, I guess, replace or put up more netting? Like, do the trees have like deflectionary purpose of any sort as well?
The pines, not so much. The oaks, potentially, some, if someone hits a hard fail, could potentially go out to the intersection there. But the pines are so scraggly that you would almost have to aim your foul ball.
We did start to get quotes. So we had a tree limb, or not a tree limb, a massive tree that fell from Amtrak across Haverford back in December. So we had some damage to the chain link fence and the netting. While we had the contractor out to get an estimate for the repair of the netting, Jeff did get some additional quotes from them to figure out what the cost would be to add additional netting along Wynwood and along Windsor. Is that correct, Jeff? So we do have those estimates. So if that's something that ends up being desired or required, and we did reach out to our property and liability firm as well to kind of understand what we would need to establish as kind of net protection. So we do have those estimates. So that is something then that we can look at incorporating into future capital plans. But for now, the plan is just to remove the trees that are hazardous, remove the bleachers, and then just regrade where the bleachers are coming out into kind of a sloped lawn seating area. The bleachers that are closer to Haverford Avenue are in okay shape, and so they're going to remain where they are.
I do think we want to make sure that this gets out on the website.
Yeah. So what I was thinking we could do as part of messaging, and I realize we're getting close to time, is just to come up with a detailed plan, a drawing, something visual. So we'll be preparing that information as we proceed, and just to make sure that everyone understands kind of what we're doing and why. And then finally, the last thing was the replacement of the school zone sign. If you recall, we had attempted to pursue some TASA funding for this, but it ended up not being a good fit. So this is something that we could still proceed with. There was also some discussion. I don't know that there was full consensus on council without that funding, if we wanted to proceed or if we wanted to reach out to the schools to see if they could contribute to offset some of that cost. So this is still kind of in somewhat of a limbo. So just for future discussion as to how we want to proceed with that identified plan or project.
Where's that sign?
We have two. So there's one on North Narberth Avenue. on St. Margaret's, so there's two on that block. And then there's one down at Rockland Avenue where the elementary school pathway, kind of to the rear of the elementary school.
Got it.
Bel-
So there's
Belmont?
3 signs.
It would be-
67,000. Oh,
There's four. There's, I'm sorry, so two on Rockland,
Perfect.
yeah, two on Rockland, two on Narberth, and the 67 is for all four.
Thank you.
Just very briefly, I had suggested that because there's some cross fertilization between the committees, that, and since we happen to have people from both the other two committees on this committee, that it would be worthwhile to just put on the agenda generally, if anybody wants to report from their respective committee, things that might be relevant to us as well. So, you know, public health and safety, we've talked about those signs, the school signs there
Yes.
as well. So, you know, there's gonna be some fertilization. My guess is we probably don't have anything to discuss this time around. I just wanted to put it on the agenda, serve as standing items so that I'll leave it to both of you, rather than myself for public, for F&A, to report.
Perfect. Thank you. I think it's a great practice.
Yeah.
So we have that opportunity.
So, Joe, if you have anything to report from public health and
There
safety.
there was no meeting in January.
Okay, well,
So
that makes it
nothing
easy.
to report. Thank you.
I don't think we really have anything to report from F&A.
No, I think we're just still talking about the kind of structure of reporting.
Yep. Okay, Amtrak Bridge update, also gonna be on here every month. So,
Yeah, so it's just at this point, you may have seen some stockpile of materials and the roadway has been shut. It will be shut for the duration of the project. So that is the portion of the intersection. So you can still get to the train station and the folks who live at the apartments can still get to their parking area through the road closure, but it's closed to through traffic through that intersection. Pedestrians, though, will pedestrian access will be maintained throughout the lifespan of this project, throughout all design and construction phases. The current kind of operations is just the utility relocation. So you're going to start to see more and more utility companies out there just disconnecting things. They have to install new utility poles and then essentially take the connections from the old poles and move them to the new poles so that they can take down the old poles. So they put up new ones, shift them, remove. So it's just a
And those poles are down at the track level. Is that right? They're not at the street level.
no, they are at street
They're
level.
street level.
Yeah. Yeah, because some of the utilities are attached to the actual bridge, and then some of them are attached to utility poles that go across the bridge. And because of the construction, the utility lines have to be shifted from one side to the other of the bridge. So yes, we are looking at new utility poles being erected on South Narberth Avenue. And I think there's one that needs to be relocated. Did we get the guy to the mast arm on that one? Did we figure that out, Jeff?
No, so when that comes down, that light fixture will just be stored in the shop.
Yep.
for when we need it.
Yeah, so there's one utility pole that's on Elmwood, on the north side of Elmwood that has a mast arm streetlight. So we're gonna hang on to that streetlight and we can reinstall it at a future date, but they don't deal with that. Those are ours. But that one comes down, but for the most part, they're on South Narberth Avenue. Yeah,
about this grant update?
just what
Just
we
what
discussed.
already-
Yep, yeah.
Okay, we normally would have public comment. We don't have people online because of the earlier incident and there's nobody in the room. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
That's something.
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned at 2:03.